Na twampane
ay 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 tuvwange
ay 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 na twampane
ay 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 ay.
Hello again and welcome to the third talk in the series of conversations we've been having around gender-based violence programming and prevention. And today we'll be diving into coordination. And with me I have Mwenya. You're welcome, Mwenya.
Thank you so much.
Mwenya is joining us from Norwegian Church Aid, and she is lead on the Natwampane program in Luapula. You're welcome, Mwenya.
Thank you so much.
Again.
I'm glad to be here.
Good to have you. And with me as well, I have Emmanuel. Emmanuel is joining us from World Vision, and he is the Gender Equality and Social Inclusion Advisor. Emmanuel, you're welcome to the program.
It's my pleasure.
Great.
Yep.
Good to have you.
Thank you.
So like I mentioned, we are diving into looking at coordination. And before we just get the topic or conversation started, I would like to hear from you. Maybe Emmanuel, would you like to come in and just tell us what comes to mind when the word coordination and GBV come into play?
Yes, so thanks very much. When we look at coordination around GBV issues, I think we're looking at these are efforts to bring all actors together, and basically is to ensure that the programming is well coordinated, as well as to leverage resources from different actors, and it's all aimed at being cost effective. Yep.
Okay, thank you so much for that.
But it's also to promote quality services that we're providing for the survivors, but also how do we all link to providing messages that are really well coordinated, so that we don't confuse our listeners, people who are looking at these programs, but also the community members on the ground. So we also need to really look at coordinated messaging around GBV in this country.
And what is important to understand is that this coordination is at different levels, and maybe I can start with the coordination at national level. So basically at national level, we should be able to zero into coordination among cooperating partners who are our donors, who are helping us with resources to run these programs. They coordinate at that level so that they basically know exactly who is doing what, where, and which organization or implementing partners and so forth. But the bigger part of it is how that links into the national coordination within the government department. So mainly around coordination on GBV, about 8 to 9 line ministries who are all really focusing on this and making sure that they move the national agenda around gender-based violence. And this is both for response services as well as prevention services. Maybe Mwenya, you can pick it up on response services?
Maybe before I get into even the response part of coordination, I think I would like to highlight the fact that really coordination in this country on the GBV program, especially with the line ministries that are working on it, is still very uncoordinated in a way. I think most of them think by having a gender focal point person, you are coordinating gender. Or even GBV in this country. So you find that most of them are working really in silos, maybe with a few that would come together and plan together and maybe do joint activities. So I think really this country has a lot of work to do to ensure that coordination from the line ministries is actually well structured, probably provided with even on how it could actually technically work, because just having an individual representing GBV programs in a line ministry or in a particular ministry, that doesn't promote coordination. With the coming in of the now former Ministry of Gender, there was an attempt to really bring different ministries to one table for coordinated programming, but I think that has not been what maybe we expected as players or actors in this sector. So I think really we could do better, and we are hopeful that with the division moving at Cabinet Office, that is our hope, is that this is one area that can be improved on.
Yeah.
But picking up from my colleague Emmanuel talking about coordination from the response side, I am working on a program, the Natwampane program in Luapula, as you introduced me. And I think in that program we have set up one-stop centers, and I know Northern, whose the lead is World Vision, have also set up one-stop centers. And coordination in those centers is so key to providing quality services for the survivors that walk through it.
Yeah.
I think we do have various players who have been allocated to these one-stop centers through the line ministries. We do have, I think really most important, that I consider most important individuals in these one-stop centers are the psychosocial counselors. Of course, unfortunately, government really doesn't have a structure that provides the psychosocial counselors to really find them. But I think for the benefit of these one-stop centers, we do need psychosocial counselors. We don't have many that government has employed to be allocated to the facilities. But that is so key in providing counsel and making the survivor really feel like they still have a second chance after going through traumatic events of GBV in the communities or households. We do have, of course, the medical, very key. The Ministry of Health has allocated staff. Actually, these one-stop centers are hosted at a health facility as part of the guidelines, so that we could have access to health services within these institutions, and they've allocated nurses and doctors who help deal with the matters of GBV when they reach in these facilities. Actually, the coordinators of the one-stop centers are actually Ministry of Health staff, and this is why we see coordination in the one-stop centers really key and important. We do have the police victim support unit who are providing really, we know in cases of GBV or even sexual and gender-based violence, when they walk into the facilities, there's need for investigation and providing really evidence that is needed, especially if these cases are going to go through the path of access to justice. If these cases, especially the criminal cases of sexual nature, the defilement cases, the rape cases, and partner intimate violence cases. So these require that they are investigated. And we do have a victim support unit personnel allocated to the one-stop center. In certain areas, of course, they may not fully stationed there, but the Ministry of Home Affairs has given us access to these people whenever we need them. And at that point of coordination, it is very key that we have access to this, because really time is of essence in cases of SGBV. And also the linkages to shelters where they exist, because we know that they don't exist in every place. In Luapula, we only have one, and you can imagine it's 12 districts versus one facility. So we still do have gaps and challenges around survivors who may need safety immediately when they present need for shelter at that moment. But when we come back to the topic of coordination, it is so key for these people. It's not just a matter of them going and existing and sitting in those facilities, because definitely if they don't coordinate even within there, it's as good as allowing the survivor going to all the specific places where these line ministries are found. So I think really what the program has done is how can they also coordinate when a client walks in, a survivor walks in, who attends to them the first, who do they refer, depending on what the case is, who should they see next. But we know that certain cases may require secondary referral outside the facility, how do you still follow up and work
Ensure
with a
that the
survivor,
survivor-
that when you refer them to community development, for example, for economic access to economic empowerment programs, how are they also being received there? So this is why we are talking about coordination being so important, because in as much as it comes in the facility, it may have to end up outside the facility, and outside the facility are many other players, including civil society organization, community level, district level, and provincial level, and my colleague talked about the national level.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Mwenya. So, Emmanuel, would you have any key pointers, for example, for the key players, for the various stakeholders that are engaged in GBV coordination? Any key highlights on how exactly to maintain that relation for coordination? As you both have mentioned, various players do come in, and various players have different roles that they play. Therefore, it is important, of course, to figure out one particular way, or like a single way to, is it to plan, or is it to evaluate together? What comment would you have around this vast coordination that is in existence? And
Thank you very much, Wadia. Just like I said earlier on, I think it would be good to appreciate the efforts which have been there, starting with the cooperating partners who are putting money in the basket to fight gender-based violence in Zambia. And the formation of the Ministry of Gender, which of course now has been, should I say, transitioned? Yes, to a division, So the Ministry of Gender was really there to coordinate all the efforts towards both bringing response as well as prevention of gender-based violence in Zambia. So, as Mwenya has outlined, where you have a lot of players in, then coordination is very key. Coordination is very key. So now, if coordination has gaps, then even if at, I would say, service delivery level, which is basically at the district level and community level, even if those efforts could be there, but without the national level coordination, then still more there will be some gaps, you know.
Big gaps.
And among those gaps will be maybe duplication of efforts, miscommunication, wrong messaging around it, and all that needs to be to work within coordination. So, for instance, if you ask me about the pointers. We are privileged at the moment that we are able to sit around the table and think of what is it that we want in Zambia, which could help us stop this vice, the gender-based violence and so forth. At the moment, I would say in the past few years, really it's donor-driven, okay? It's donor-driven. But I think it's time that as a nation, as line ministries, and divisions inside this consortium, we should be able to sit down and come up with our roadmap in responding to gender-based violence in Zambia, as well in preventing gender-based violence in Zambia. So if we have a roadmap or a strategy, other people use the word strategy, then everybody would know to say, okay, we have this 5-year strategy. In each sector, these are the priorities for us to respond and reduce gender-based violence. Then if now our friends, the cooperating partners who have been very responsive and very interested to help us Zambians stop this vice, if we come to them to say, okay, we have done an analysis, these are the priorities, things that we would need. I think moving forward with the new division coordinating that strategy, then everyone could push money into that strategy or pick specific areas of interest. Then we could be able to move forward quickly and be able to measure actually better our progress in terms of that. And that needs really coordination, not just by having focal point persons, but let's empower those focal point persons by training them. Because it's not everybody who just comes on board and says, we have appointed you as a focal point person for gender-based violence. No, it's a very sensitive issue and a very important issue to the people of Zambia and because it touches actually on all our lives. It is our relatives we are talking about. It is our own children we are talking about. It's our nieces. Ourselves, ourselves we are talking about, because GBV has a lot of dynamics around it. That's why it really calls for serious reflection around it. Come up with a strategy, fund that, follow it through, measure it, and see the progress as we move.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So maybe just to add on,
please.
I've always looked at the perspective of GBV materials in this country.
I'm glad you kind of went there.
I think really each program that has come in and gone has come with its
their
own
own
materials. And each time a new program is coming, they are coming with materials.
own,
And that really borders on coordination. And coordination being led by the Republic of Zambia in ensuring that we are providing minimum standards for trainings, capacity buildings, regardless of where these trainings will be done and regardless of which groups we want to train. And anyone who comes in with a GBV program, they should not come and talk about developing materials, but we should be saying, oh, thank you, you have brought resources in this area. There's enough GBV in this country. It can be shared, and the monies that should have gone towards supporting a particular activity, we are still taking them to developing manuals and materials to be utilized in the program. And I think that is something that really, as a country, we should look at and ensure we coordinate so well around that.
What is it that can bring us together? What is it that has worked? What is it that can work? If we agree to that, we get the common point, that will bring us together, and we should be able to coordinate. And we need our government, through different ministries and the division now, to be in front, to lead the agenda. Okay? And we all come in as actors or as implementing partners at different levels.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mwenya, and thank you so much, Emmanuel, for that very detailed analysis on coordination and GBV. I, for one, have, taken in a lot from this conversation, and I will definitely take coordination back to my home because I think it's important to start from the nearest, grassroots, and as you move up to national level. So thank you again.
Okay. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Na twampane
Tuvuange
na twampane